Hey, it's Josephine from the Pointe shop out of the Winston-Salem Dance Medicine Conference, where I'm presenting with a dancer today. And this is probably the worst set of injuries I have ever seen.
Last year during Nutcracker season, she had a stress fracture in her 5th and 4th metatarsal, as well as fracture on both of her tibias. She has some Achilles pain as well. So that means that there's a lot of pressure on the top of her foot. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today. So the first thing that I notice is that her right foot is much wider than her left. If you're not wearing two different sizes, then sometimes you can get injured on your wider foot if your shoes are too narrow or if your shoes are not narrow enough. For Ansley, she was wearing the same size for both her left and her right when she was injured, so that's another thing that I'm going to take into consideration. On to your right foot, ALISO. So on top of being the one that is a little bit wider, she also has a pretty prominent bunion with the big toe slanted in. That's another thing that we're going to be watching out for, even though it's not entirely related. It's something that we want to prevent in the future. On to your other foot, in her midfoot, she has a lot of mobility. She has looser joints in that area, so again, that's something that we want to make sure that she has a little bit more support in. A lot of these issues are going to cause a chain reaction up the leg. So she is experiencing a little bit of hip problems as well. So this is something that's all related. It starts from her toes, it goes up to her ankles, and then possibly her knees and her hips. So we want to prevent that from getting worse. We want to give her lots of support right here at the top of her ankle and also across her toes right here. So we want to make sure that her shoes are wide enough so that it accommodates all of her metatarsals and give her enough support. Something that is longer in the wings and on the vamp so that she has a little bit more support in the top. You guys always make fun of me, but we kind of have to give her a cup because we want to have as much stability as possible. So we want to see alignment. We want to make sure that the shoes are correctly fitted in terms of the shape and the size, and then also giving her enough support. So when you're looking at her shoes, one, it is really narrow. So it kind of has an ice cream cone effect where your foot is spilling over the top. I see all of her knuckles here. This is where she was injured. So we want to make sure that all of that is covered on the side and on the top. And then when you're looking at the shoe, it is breaking quite low. So we want to make sure that the shoe is breaking slightly higher in order for her to be a little bit more supported here. Now, a lot of the problems with this type of foot is that because she has a lot of flexibility in the bottom part of her foot, she uses her flexibility to get over on point. If I give her something that's too hard in the shank or that breaks a little bit too high, she might get pulled back and she might put more strain on her Achilles. So this is a very delicate balance of alignment. We want to make sure that she's aligned properly and completely on top of her box. But if she's too far over, it'll pinch her Achilles. If she's too far back, that will also pinch her Achilles. So we want to make sure she's getting enough support right here because this is the part that she continues to injure herself, and then align properly so that she's not putting so much stress right there. The shape of her feet are actually a little bit different as well. Her right foot is, yes, a little bit wider, but it's also slightly more square than the left one. The left one is slightly more tapered. So if we were to do two different shoes, we could actually do a slightly more tapered shoe on the left that's a bit softer, and then perhaps something that's a little bit more square for the right, and that will give it a little bit more stability. But overall, for both of her feet, I'm going to give her something with a higher vamp and something with a slightly softer shank so that she can rely on the front of the shoe to balance. So you can see that the vamp is a lot shorter in this shoe than in this one. We're going to do a longer vamp on both her left and her right, but we're going to do slightly different shape and a slightly different size. So we're going to go wider in the metatarsal, slightly higher in the crown, and a little bit wider in the platform. When dancers go through injuries, and if it's on one side, I typically do two different types of pointe shoes on the left and the right, at least for the injury rehab period, so that the dancer can be a little bit more even. This doesn't mean that she's going to stay in both of these shoes, but it's something that will help her get a little bit more aligned. Basically want a little bit more stability from the tip of her toe to the top of her ankle. Is it jamming anywhere? Okay, great. Does that feel pretty good across the metatarsal? From the naked eye, you can't really tell, but this is a wider platform right here, so that will give her a little bit more stability. This one's slightly smaller, but you can see that compared to her old shoes, the vamp is a little bit longer. So we just want to make sure that at least while she's rehabbing, we're giving her a little bit more support across the metatarsals. We don't see any knuckles popping out now. Is it jamming or hurting? Okay, good.